Welcome to part 1 of price determination for horticultural products in Australia. Hi, I'm David Monkton. The material for this lecture has been developed by Dr. Malcolm Wegner from the School of Agriculture and Food Sciences at the University of Queensland, Australia. There are 3 levels of price setting for horticultural produce that are of interest. These are the farm gate, wholesale market and retail prices. Information on factors affecting price setting at these 3 levels is presented here with reference to farm gate prices that determine farmers' incomes, wholesale markets as the intersection between supply and demand, and retail prices that reflect consumers' willingness to pay. What are the main drivers of price determination? A report prepared by Whitehall Associates for the Australian Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries outlined the main drivers setting prices in the fruit and vegetable supply chain. Farm gate prices are driven by the prevailing balance of supply and demand of fresh produce at the time of marketing. Returns will be variable depending on the use of direct supply to major purchasers or dependence on wholesale markets. Wholesale prices are driven by the prevailing balance of supply and demand of fresh produce at the time of marketing, enhanced by ineffective transparency at certain stages. This includes packing and wholesaling. Integrated supply chains with retailers reduces price volatility and increases the returns to growers. Retail prices are set by retailers to provide the target margin over the full costs of the produce category. These need to vary according to price-sensitive points to consumers, with periodic fluctuations due to fruit availability and quality. How are prices set in retail stores? In this discussion, it is appropriate to start with some more detailed points about price setting for fruit and vegetable items in retail stores. After all, that is the part of the horticultural supply chain that most people are familiar with, as they are regular shoppers for food items, and it is ultimately what consumers are prepared to pay for food items that establishes their value. Retail trade in food items is dominated by the 2 big supermarket chains in Australia, Coles and Woolworths, whose market share is now being significantly eroded by newcomers such as Aldi, Costco and Pick n Pay, while others like IGA have just announced a campaign to compete with the supermarkets on food prices. Australia has the most concentrated food retailing sector of any country in the world, with a very high percentage of retail trade, perhaps up to 80% of some lines, being held by the 2 big supermarket chains. This has significant consequences for the marketing and pricing of horticultural produce in Australia. It has been the subject of numerous inquiries and investigations by parliamentary committees, the ACCC, Productivity Commission and others. This is because of the perception that the supermarkets are extracting unacceptably high rents from their oligopolistic position in the market. What are the market outlets for horticultural products in Australia? The range of market outlets for horticultural products in Australia includes the major supermarkets, as well as specialty fruit and vegetable stores, convenience stores, farmers markets, roadside stalls and pick your own produce. In some industries, there is also a potential outlet for canned, frozen or otherwise processed product in addition to the fresh food chain. Why is retail pricing of horticultural produce different in different outlets? Retail pricing for many fruit and vegetable items often reflects the type of store from which the item is being purchased. For instance, specialist fruit and vegetable stores in one of the northern suburbs of Brisbane mostly set prices consistently below that of the large supermarkets. On the other hand, there are outlets such as the organic and farmers markets, Harris Farms and Jones the Grocer, often with shops in high-income suburbs in the major cities that charge much higher than supermarket prices, although usually for higher quality produce. What are the factors affecting retail prices? Pricing of fruit and vegetable products in all of the outlets mentioned above is a blend of many factors. The significant ones are the landed into store cost of the item being sold. This will be dominated by supply and demand conditions, with prices in the wholesale market responding quite quickly, for example, to changes in supply. Environmental conditions and natural disasters have a major effect on the supply of horticultural produce, as well as the price received by producers. Willingness of customers to pay. This may be related to the type of store, as mentioned previously, but also takes into consideration the store's location. Stores located in the suburbs or places with higher socio-economic status and income levels charge higher prices than those in low socio-economic areas. Prices for fruit and vegetables in remote areas are always higher than city stores, partly to reflect the transport costs involved, but lack of competition does allow stores in remote areas to set higher prices. And retail selling costs. These include the cost of labour for packaging and preparation, as well as significant costs for wastage. For various reasons, retailers usually need to discard or sell at a low price a proportion of the items they purchase. Some items have limited shelf life, and nearly all fruit and vegetable lines deteriorate reasonably quickly in spite of good storage and handling conditions. Cold storage is a significant cost for fruit and vegetable retailers, as are labour costs for repackaging small quantities of fruit and vegetables for retail sale from the larger bulk containers that the stores purchase from the markets. An increasing number of lines are being packed by the farmers in small retail packs, e.g. punnets for strawberries, blueberries, plastic bags, citrus, etc., ready for stores to put into their shelves for sale. Another factor affecting prices at the retail level is whether a particular product is being promoted in some way by the industry or by the individual store. This may be related to trying to move a larger than normal seasonal supply of the product or to expand market share from competing products. Promotion may lower prices for individual products, while advertising is usually designed to encourage greater purchases and maintain or encourage buyers to pay higher prices. Various quality aspects also affect prices, and there is increasing evidence that consumers are willing to pay for the attributes that we may not consider important in the past. Various quality aspects also affect prices, and there is increasing evidence that consumers are willing to pay for the attributes that we may not have considered important in the past. Note the rise in popularity of organic foods and the value most consumers place on provenance, knowing where the product came from, such as in French wine, King Island dairy, Cape Grim water, and now Cape Grim beef. This raises the importance of maintaining identity or product integrity right along the supply chain, from producer to retail sale. An unresolved question is how much of this additional value that consumers are prepared to pay can be captured by producers at the start of the supply chain. How do retail prices affect consumer behaviour? Retail prices are the most important in the chain, as they establish how much consumers are willing to pay and therefore how much is available for distribution among all of the participants in the supply chain. Those close to the consumption end of the supply chain can usually extract greater value than those near the production end. Consumers are more willing to pay for convenience, packaging, and preparation than they are for the basic food item itself, and this leads to farmers getting the residual value after all other players in the supply chain. As such, other players have greater market power than the farmers. Supply and demand factors always have a major influence in setting market prices, although this plays out most strongly in determining the prices farmers get. Supply for horticultural product is affected by seasonality, location of production in relation to markets, environmental impact, and natural disasters. Recall the enormous effect on banana prices from the cyclones that devastated production in North Queensland some years ago. Import restrictions kept prices higher for longer. Demand is a complex issue involving demand for the basic item as well as demand for the associated services that are involved in its delivery. The extent to which consumers value the packaging and processing convenience of air-conditioned supermarket shopping when they can pick up all their weekly food requirements from one store, and the extended shelf life due to refrigeration in stores. Prices can also be affected by the ability to buy a product from an exotic location, which may influence their friends at the weekend barbecue. All these factors influence how much consumers are willing to pay, and to some extent how that value is apportioned. The share of the payment for the basic item that goes back to the farmer is often a small fraction of the consumer's dollar spent on food items.